academic who studies volunteers in policing internationally, and I'm delighted to continue our series of interviews on Policing TV with experts and leaders across the field of volunteers in policing. By being joined today by Dave Grimstead and Mark Greenhalgh, volunteer leaders of the charity Locate International. Locate International are dedicated to locating the missing and naming the unidentified, ensuring that every possible effort has been made to bring closure for families. The commitment is to provide expert reviews. They mobilize skilled volunteers to drive innovative investigations in order to solve long-term missing and unidentified person cases. So Mark, can I ask you to introduce yourself first, please?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Mark Greenhalgh. I'm the new CEO of Locate International. I've just taken over from Dave Grimstead. I've got 24 years in policing experience from constable to chief superintendent. I'm passionate about missing persons and I've led missing person teams and served as SIO. I hold a master's in criminal psychology focused on missing persons, and I'm currently pursuing a doctorate in effective investigative interventions for missing persons and cold cases.
And Dave, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dave Grimstead. I'm one of the founders of Locate International. Having retired from policing after 32 years, I then had an idea for an entirely voluntary-led organisation that would support police and families with the investigations of missing persons. And for the last 5 years, I've been leading that organisation.
Dave, can I come to you then just to share a little bit more about that background? Clearly this is such an interesting, exciting example of utilising volunteers. Can you give us a sense of the history of Locate International and just that story of how it came about?
Yeah, so we started about 5 years ago when we first presented the idea at the International Conference on Missing Children and Adults. And it really came about from talking to families in long-term missing persons cases where they've been searching for decades, and once those search teams disappear and dissipate, that feeling of being left alone to continue that search. And I literally remember seeing search and rescue teams from the RNLI deploying when I was in holiday in Cornwall, and professionally trained volunteers from the community who were going out to save lives. And I just felt that there was something that we could do with the talented people in the communities to bridge that gap, so that when those search teams finish their work, that we can perhaps take up that and support police and families. And when talking to senior investigators who are tasked with reviewing cases, there's so much demand and pressure on policing, but also on families who want answers. For them, it's the most important thing, and it's a really difficult world to navigate without any support, and there just wasn't anything out there that provided that. So we looked to fill that gap, and over the last 5 years we've grown to over 300 volunteers who go through one of our training programs, and honestly we've probably got another 300 people waiting to join. Such is that passion and commitment for trying to help where they can. And there are so many transferable skills, so many stories where people are able to bring experience from other fields to make a difference here, that really we just tap into that. And 5 years, 300 people, an entirely voluntary organisation that delivers over 120,000 operational hours, which, even if you just take it at the minimum commitment of minimum wage, that's over £1 million contribution to society. And we're policing 13,000 unsolved missing person cases across the UK. Even if you just took the basic guidance from the College of Policing of reviewing these cases annually, that's 13,000 days of policing time, which my daughter's a lost person search manager at a police force at the moment, and day to day I know the pressure that they're under. So if we can find a way to work in partnership with police and develop a new model, this kind of that community-led approach to supporting policing and families.
Thank you. A key part of the Locate International model, as you say, is engaging volunteers. Dave, can you just share with us a little what roles volunteers do play across the organisation?
Well, I think it's so that time when I was working as an SIO on major crime, just take the role of the office manager, the person who runs that major inquiry, all the organisation behind it. It's just like delivering any major project. You've got to be organised, you've got to be able to run programmes, and no matter how good the detectives were that were out there doing different elements of that, it was always that role there that kept everything together, that role of the kind of office manager, the manager of the Holmes system for investigations. And we've got volunteers that are currently running major national projects all across the UK, and they can apply those same skills to helping us review cases. You just take as well the fact that missing contains so many elements of mental health. As an SIO, I'm reviewing cases where they're talking about complex areas of mental health, and why not have somebody who has 30 years of experience in that field reviewing those cases and providing feedback and assessment on the information that's been gathered. There's just so many people that can make a difference, and if you blend that with police officers, former police officers, lawyers, journalists, there's a real mix of people there that when you bring it together, it's that diversity that really helps improve investigations. And I think if I'd been an SIO, if I'd have had a team like that producing an analysis, and then I was able to sit down and read that as the first step in the review, that would have made such a difference to me. And if we can achieve that over the next 5 years and really grow that model, particularly with Mark at the helm now, I think we can really begin to develop something that can make a national difference.
Thank you. Mark, this is a really interesting model. So you have volunteers who are sitting outside of policing, but are working very closely with the police and on an agenda of missing people and unidentified persons, but it is clearly a central core business of the police. How do you make that relationship with policing work with volunteers external to policing?
So I completely agree, firstly, that is the role of the police. However, research and experience shows that volume and demand exceed the resources available on a daily basis. We know someone's reported missing every 90 seconds in the UK. That's 170,000 people reported missing every year, 320,000 reported missing incidents every year. Equally, we know that each police force deals with at least 12 missing person cases daily. So they struggle to manage the ongoing demand, let alone these cold cases or unidentified bodies. Dave's already touched on the numbers around those two. I did some research in 2019, and 53% of policing said, due to the availability of resources, we can only afford to deal with high-risk missing persons due to the lack of resources available. So our role at Locate International is really to support policing, not replace it. Our relationship with the police works really well because of a mutual respect and a shared really goal of understanding and solving these cases. We complement the police's efforts by providing time, resources and expertise. Dave's already talked around that, to assist with the cases. So we are very strict that our volunteers are carefully selected, trained, and so they adhere to high standards of professionalism and confidentiality. They've got specific skills such as genealogy, forensic imaging, investigation backgrounds. Credibility is really important to me, and it's really important to Locate International. So they're not Facebook or armchair detectives that would hinder an investigation. We're here to help. So I think policing is recognising we've got this capacity and time to step in and bridge that gap for the long term and unidentified cases. And we're actually working towards formal agreements with both the NPCC and NCA really to formalise that assistance. So in summary, really, we're there to help policing and not replace it.
Do you think there are any advantages of a volunteer sitting outside of policing?
Absolutely. I've seen it from obviously both sides of the coin. And I think one significant advantage is that fresh perspective that volunteers bring to the cases. We've already talked around the skill set that they bring to the table, but it's that fresh pair of eyes. And being outside the traditional law enforcement framework and under all the time pressures and the demand pressures allows our volunteers to use their skills to think creatively, approach problems from different angles. And again, they come from really diverse professional backgrounds. I'm absolutely in awe about the talent that we have within our organisation, and equally the pipeline of talent that we've got waiting at the moment that give us those unique insights, expertise that's not really readily available for a police force. So police forces don't generally have forensic imaging artists or genealogy professionals, whereas we do. But then most importantly, it allows us to step back and have that time and dedicated resources, again, without the demand pressures, to revisit, review that investigation from the start to ensure no detail's been overlooked. And some of these investigations go way back years. Dave's already mentioned last year we did a little bit of number crunching, and our volunteers provided 120,000 hours of operational support, equating to just over 1.37 million at no cost to polices or families. And that's with just those 300 volunteers. Imagine what we could do and help policing if we doubled that number of volunteers. So there are massive advantages, not only a fresh pair of eyes, but really bringing that skill set and giving the time, space and expertise to the investigations.
And the organisation of Locate International is also led and managed by volunteers, is that right?
Absolutely. Everybody from Dave and myself downwards is a volunteer. So there's no paid employment. There's no money. It's all it's a charity. So it's a purely a volunteer basis. So everybody gives up their time for that shared goal of helping the families and helping find the unidentified people.
Thank you. And Dave, you're about to start a new pilot project with Devon and Cornwall Police. Can you share more about what that will involve?
Yeah, so I think it's it kind of comes back to what Mark was saying. It's just I've seen so many projects across the globe where communities have made a difference in the justice field. And one of the projects I remember talking to families, the mothers and grandmothers in Argentina that were looking for the disappeared, and Mark touched on genealogy, and we know from the work that they did looking for their relatives that they almost led the way in forensic investigative genetic genealogy and where that is today, because they went out and sought the experts who could help develop those solutions. And for us, we've created an amazing team of volunteers who have a kind of purpose behind what they're doing. And I think for me the last 5 years has been unique, leading an organisation where nobody's paid, nobody has to be there. They're only there because they share that same purpose. I think I read a quote somewhere that if you can't be fired or retire from something, then it's not your kind of purpose. If you can be fired or retire from something, and everybody's prepared to say what they think. You know, if no one's not beholden on somebody else for the next promotion or the next or the politics that are sometimes involved. And I love that kind of diversity, that freedom to express people's views. And I think we've reached a point where, you know, we're making a difference in individual cases. There is no question there. We're resolving cases that have been unresolved for decades and helping policing from that perspective. And that's just with the information that's available publicly. If we could bring this partnership together with the police and create something that's led by the community, because we've got some brilliant people who can really help develop the whole process around missing persons. So to do that, we need to kind of step it up another level so that we're having partnerships with policing, and we can show what the next version of this could look like, with vetted volunteers working within Devon and Cornwall Police, where we're going to start the pilot, and collaborating with our wider community teams, but keeping that firewall that's there. I think and it's always the struggle, is that you can have an idea. We know what we need to do, But then if you're reliant on somebody internally within the organisation to make it happen, they're under the same demands, whether you're on frontline policing as a lost person search manager or whether you're leading the citizens in policing teams. There's always another demand on you. If we can bring in experienced volunteers to actually develop the whole project internally and that collaboration, that's definitely where we'll make a difference. You just need to look at the quality of data, for example. If we really want to improve how we look at unsolved missing persons cases, the data's got to be so much better than where it is now. So if we can bring in, for example, our university teams that specialise in data analytics, we bring in local people who specialise in industry and data, we gather that data, that information, and that really informs how we might be able to prevent this for the future, because families say to us that they want to make sure that everything's been done, but also they want to help prevent this for the future. And the only way to do that is make sure that the quality of the data is right, so that we can get the research done to really inform those preventative questions. And our whole ethos is about not making unnecessary demands on policing at this moment when it's going through huge changes. If we can provide talented volunteers into that pipeline who can help develop the systems internally and the wider collaboration with our teams, then that's what we're going to do. And if we can get that model in Devon and Cornwall from September, using partnerships between industry, academia, community volunteers, I think in 3 years' time we'll be talking about something completely different, where we're able to kind of transform the whole area of missing persons cases, long-term missing persons cases.
Really, really interesting, and it touches on what my next question was going to be, which is just how do you see Locate International developing and growing in the future?
I can ask that one. So currently we've got 300 volunteers across 13 countries, each, as you know, bringing a skill set that assists investigations. I see Locate International expanding its reach and impact in several ways. Very ambitious, but equally realistic and achievable. So firstly, we aim to grow our volunteer base, attracting more skilled professionals who are passionate about our mission. That's critical. Secondly, we plan to enhance our use of technology, utilising some advanced data analytics, forensic tools to improve our investigative process of being as efficient as we can be. Then stepping into the space, we aim to establish more formal partnerships with law enforcement agencies and other organisations globally. We're already starting to do that. Therefore, we've got that network of collaboration that's borderless. And then finally, we aspire to foster and lead research initiatives to become a global leader in the prevention of missing person cold cases. So as Dave mentioned, by advancing our understanding of the factors that contribute to those cases, we can put preventative strategies in place and work towards reducing the number of future incidents. So they're the kind of 4 key steps really, and ultimately our goal is to become a leading force in the resolution of cold cases, providing hope and answers to families and then communities around the world, so having that global impact.
Thank you. And Dave, what do you think is the key learning from what you've achieved as volunteers, with volunteers in the Locate International model that could be applied more broadly across policing and volunteering?
I think for me it's about the purpose, and finding people who share that common purpose, and then creating the opportunities for those people to be part of leading the change in that particular area. I mean, there's 13,000 unsolved missing persons cases, and we know very little about those cases. So, for example, policing there's a lot of investment in return interviews of people who return from missing persons cases. But if you're really going to understand the problem, you also need to look at those that didn't return and really try to understand what were the common factors there. And I think what I've learned is there's an untapped community out there that are prepared to get stuck in and help. They just need to be shown the way to be able to do it and given the opportunity to do it. And I think my biggest learning is that really just create the opportunity and try and remove all those blockers that make life difficult to actually get engaged in volunteering, because it's a bit like the RNLI, which kind of started that whole process. You've got some people who are really skilled at being able to go to sea and make that difference, but there are so many other people who want to contribute in the same way but don't have those skills. And we just create that pathway. That's all we've done. It's not been anything that's particularly brilliant, because it's just creating an opportunity for all those people that already kind of have a passion, and making it easy for those people to contribute.
And can you share with us an example of where the volunteers have made a difference? A case which is really delivered in terms of missing persons.
Oh, there are just so many. We've got a documentary which starts on Channel 4, which you'll be able to get on demand after today as well. So it's going out over the next 3 weeks. But during that, you can see the difference the volunteers make. If you imagine one of the cases, which was Lucy and Barry, you've got somebody whose father was lost off a beach in Norfolk. And she was only 2 years old at the time. She always wondered what happened to her father, because her father dived into the sea to try and rescue somebody who was drifting out to sea. They'd got themselves in trouble. He managed to rescue those two people. He managed to start swimming back to the shore, but he never made it back. And 10 days later, a body washed up on the shore in France. But no connection was ever made between those two cases. It was only the work of Andy Guy, who's a dedicated major crime investigator in Norfolk. Decades later, he managed to get some data from France that highlighted this particular case as a possible match with Lucy's father. I mean, it shouldn't have taken decades to find that answer, and we can definitely help with that process, because Andy was only ever able to do that because he had a bit of downtime to look at other cases. But then you had the situation of France having a completely different legal system and approach to cross-matching, so Andy couldn't do it for the family. So you're left with the family trying to work out how they're going to match to see if that's her father over in France. And it's a complex process and it's expensive. But we've got volunteers we've got specialist forensic anthropologists that have led mass exhumations and examined different sites. We've got legal advocates. We've got French speakers who can really help navigate the system. So the team were able to come together. They were able to manage that exhumation. They were able to do all of that on behalf of the family and find the answer for Lucy. And she'd been waiting 2 years to find that one answer, and it meant a lot to her. And just that one example. We just had a case recently of a 25-year-old case of a long-term missing persons case that our specialist open source intelligence team managed to locate. And that case had been reviewed by policing for 25 years. But what you tend to sometimes get is that review of reviews, and going back to the start, they were able to locate that person to provide the information to the police in that case. We had a case from 1996 where the name had been written in the file of a young man who died on the streets of London, been unidentified for decades. The team were able to find the answers through the application of technology, through sheer tenacity. And another case from 1975, they were able to find the answer. And all of these the answers were always there. And I really believe, if police officers had enough time to be able to review these cases in depth, they'd have found those answers themselves as well. But there just isn't the capacity to be able to do that. And if we can provide that support, I think that's where the difference can be made. And talking to the families, it made a huge difference to them.
Thank you. And Locate International sounds like it's not only added capacity and capability. In some ways, you've also changed the thinking and the ways of going about investigations and delivering. There's a sense of, as you've you said leading the innovation in this area. So do you think, Locate International has brought new ways of working in this sphere?
I mean, for sure. Emma Tilley, who's one of our volunteers, has just finished her PhD looking at cross-matching of missing and unidentified people, and there's a lot of learning from there as to where we should be looking to make those identifications, and some of that is not in police databases. She's just finished her Churchill Fellowship around forensic investigative genetic genealogy and the possibilities that can arise from that type of work. She's been to Canada, been to United States, is going to Sweden to look at that kind of best practice that's out there. And we've got the same across. We've got 15 universities that we work with as well. So we've got. What I'm finding is that the people we started working with when we first started this have now qualified. They're now PhD students in some cases. Sometimes they're working for international organisations, and it's not just the difference that they make to the cases that we've worked on. I feel you can see them develop as people as well, and their skill sets, and I think that will help create a pipeline for policing, but for other organisations that work in social justice, because you just see that pathway of people who have developed, and we've given them an opportunity, but they've made the most of that opportunity and turned it into something that's allowed them to develop their personal skills that actually will make a difference to the whole area around social justice and other elements.
So you mentioned engaging students around Locate International. That's been a core part of how you've grown the charity. Can you just talk a bit more about how you've made that work to engage volunteers from the student body?
Yeah, so all of our universities volunteer, so they don't do it as part of a core module or a credit, so they have to volunteer. And it was seen initially as a mechanism for those people who really go the extra mile when they're at university, maybe not taxed enough sometimes, and give them something that's really testing. So we provide those opportunities. We co-founded the International Cold Case Analysis Project, which is run together with the Police Academy in Lower Saxony in Germany, where we have universities from across the globe who participate in reviewing cases on behalf of the German police. And they've been involved in some high-level cold case investigations, working collaboratively with cold case teams across the globe. But what I really like about the model, all our volunteers, I think we had a look at the age range of our volunteers, it's 18 to 77, and people have got a lot of experience. And what I like is that intergenerational engagement. I remember when I first started in policing, I'm kind of 18 and a half, joining the Met Police and working with people who come from so many different backgrounds and have so much experience that it really helps bring you out and helps develop you as a person. And I think that's one of the beauties of our model, really, is we're able to bring together those specialists, the lecturers in each of these universities who have a kind of discipline, but also talented people who are at the start of their growth as students and people, and people who've, like myself, who've already done 30 years, and we can it's that blend, I think, that makes a difference.
And Mark, we've touched on it a couple of times. One of the really exciting elements of this is the international angle, the sense that this is a volunteer-led project which is working internationally across different countries, across lots of different policing agencies. Can you just talk us a bit about, what your plans are for the future to develop that international element?
Yeah, so we're working closely with the French equivalent of Locate. We're just establishing some relationships there. We've got a big team contingent in Australia at the moment, and our research into action, so REACT is what we call it, is being led by Professor Suzanne Fraser. She resides in Australia, so she's got very good links in Australia. We've got people in Canada. We've got people that have come across from Ukraine that have joined Locate International. So I think our opportunities that we've got really to make that borderless and get the best practice from different countries is got to be the way forward, really, because globally we've all got the same challenge. It's just the politics and sometimes the ways of working that get in the way. So the more opportunities we can share our work globally and have a look at working with Interpol and other agencies, then that has to be the way forward. So basically we've got to have that law enforcement agencies having that network of collaboration that's truly borderless and draw on the best practice of not only academia but law enforcement agencies as well, and then bring the two together.
Thank you, Mark Greenhalgh and Dave Grimstead, for some really interesting insights into the world of volunteer involvement in missing people. Such an innovative example of thinking about and engaging with volunteers differently. Volunteers are a major element across policing in many countries across the world, but they rarely get that attention at a senior and strategic level. So we really look forward to hearing more of the future of your exciting project as you continue to grow and develop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.